Hello there, this is Kati Gostasby, and are you at a crossroads in your career? Specifically, should you stay a full-time employee or dive into entrepreneurship? And maybe you're thinking, how do I decide what to do with my life, in essence? So that's the topic I want to talk to you about today. Specifically, it's a very important issue for a lot of people. Reinventing your life is really what we're talking about. And I'm going to share with you my personal journey about trying to decide between the two options. And the two options are, should you stay a full-time employee? Or should you become an entrepreneur? So full-time employee first. Here's what being a full-time employee entails. You work for somebody else. You are on somebody else's schedule. You have other people that you must interact with, and perhaps you even lead them. And you're generally going to be working in a larger organization. Okay, and the key benefits of being a full-time employee, of course, are that you do get benefits. Probably you get a steady paycheck, and you are supported by a larger infrastructure, specifically a business. Now, the key challenges then, of course, are all the same. You're on somebody else's time generally. You get told what to do. You don't get to pick your clients, and you don't get to pick the people that you work with. Versus entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is really fundamentally about running your own show, being able to be the income producer and deciding who you work with and what you work on. And that is very exciting as part of the rewards of being an entrepreneur. I can attest to that. And the risks, of course, are the same as well, which include, because you work for yourself, it doesn't always guarantee a steady paycheck. It just doesn't, folks. I'm here to attest to that. And, you may have a client one day and they may disappear on you the next day and say that they run out of funds and they can't have you anymore. And the other risk of entrepreneurship, or the downside perhaps, is that sometimes it gets lonely. But then again, being a full-time employee, if you're sitting at home behind a screen, gets lonely as well. So it's something to think about. Now, here are some key considerations when deciding between staying a full-time employee or being an entrepreneur. I need you to first do a self-assessment. Most importantly, what are your strengths? I call them, when I work with clients, what are your natural talents? What are you really good at? So you can identify whether you can bring them to a job setting somewhere else or you do it for yourself. And also do a self-assessment on what are your personal goals. Financially with your family, or perhaps goals in terms of serving your life purpose or a certain mission that you're on. It's very important. Next, what I want you to do is I want you to do some research. Go out there and look at demand. See what others are doing in the market. See if you're thinking of starting your own business. Is there a need for it? Will people pay you for it? And that goes to the second part of that, which is financial planning. Can you be financially prepared to start your own business, be an entrepreneur? There will not be a steady paycheck. There could be a lot more than a steady paycheck. However, you have to really consider that for yourself. And lastly, what I want you to do is I want you to set a time frame. It's really important to set a deadline for making a decision on something like this. It's not something that I want you to think about randomly, constantly, and have it just always be over here in your mind and over here in your mind. I want you to give it some real consideration and thought, and then make a decision by a deadline. I don't care how long your deadline is. Ideally, frankly, it would be under 6 months, or definitely under a year, because how long are you going to think, and how long are you going to spend doing market research? But I want you to set a deadline for your decision, because it will keep you in motion and action rather than stagnating and just worrying and thinking about it, okay? So I'm going to share with you now my own personal story of this. So I had always been an employee in my first career as a lawyer. Always getting a steady paycheck, always working for, whether it was the SEC, a law firm, or a company, I was always working for somebody. I stopped that career 20 some years ago now. I'm forgetting the dates, right? And I started this career as a consultant, running this consulting business globally. And I really discovered that I was an entrepreneur at heart. I love it. I love making the decisions. I love doing the work that really I get to pick my clients. And it's very exciting for me. And yes, paycheck's not studied. It can't be by definition, but you get to a time when you decide, hey, you know what clients you want, you go after them, and they do turn into long-term engagements. However, all that said, about a year ago, so many years into this, about 14 years into running this business, I kind of just stopped, you guys, and I said, let's reevaluate. I asked myself the same question you're asking yourself. Should I stay an entrepreneur or should I go back to full-time employment? And I spent 9 months looking around. I started interviewing for roles. I started assessing my resume and whether my CV had those skill sets on them, and looking for matches and looking for things that I did differently. I started having conversations with people in corporate America and outside just to see what was going on. Because remember, I had spent 14 years looking at the market from a very different perspective as a consultant running a business supporting the market, and now I was looking to return into it. And after 9 months, here is what I ended up doing, you guys. I decided that I was going to stay an entrepreneur and run this business. Truly, whether it was to go back to work as a full-time employee or an entrepreneur, I weighed them. I sort of did what we call in neurolinguistics programming a parts integration. A part of me wanted to do this and a part of me wanted to do that, and I found out, nope. You know what? My heart and soul were in entrepreneurship, and that actually served my highest purpose. I'm good with taking the risk of not getting a steady paycheck. Mind you, I'm not sure that you really ever feel that way once you jump into entrepreneurship, because once you're committed to it and you find your voice and show up exactly as you are and shine your light, the right people find you and they know you're good at it and they want that. And so you're always going to have a steady paycheck if you're committed to it. I did that though, and I have never looked back. Business is booming, and I'm extremely happy once again running this business because I know what's out there. And you know what else? What the benefit of that was? I got to meet a lot of cool people. I got to figure out that a lot of jobs that are marked out there as FTE, full-time employees, could be done with consulting companies like mine for a fraction of the time without having to pay the overhead for human resources and all the other expenses of full-time employees. Now, I'm not telling companies what to do, but I'm saying I noticed that. And as a result, we picked up a lot of business that way. I was like, you don't need an FTE for this. Let us do it for a fraction of the cost as a consultant. We get in, we do it efficiently, we get out. No other need to commit differently. And I really found out where my skill sets were matched and where I was superior, or where it was like not something that I wanted to do. So that was my journey, and I'm so glad I took it. However, I had to be strong and I had to look at it as an opportunity, and that's what I'm asking you to do. So that's what I learned, to take the leap and do it because it was important. So remember, here's what I want you to do. I want you to stop and really assess your strengths, know what the market conditions are, know how much you can afford to financially sway one way or another, to decide and set a deadline for yourself, okay? And then once you've done that, my final advice to you is to really listen to your heart. Stop running around and just get very quiet and very still. Maybe even close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths. Ground, get really centered, focused, and listen to what your heart says. Not just your mind, but your heart. Marry the two. And then decide next steps. This isn't anything I want you to rush, but I want you to do it with commitment, with integrity, and intentionally. So I ask you guys to reflect on this and comment and drop a note in here and tell me what you learned. And remember, with my company, we're focused on getting businesses to achieve more through their people. And I combine my intuition and my leadership experience to help businesses reach their full potential. And I hope this video has been helpful. Drop a note, drop a comment, let me know how it helped, and we'll talk to you next time. Until then, Kati G out.